I read this thing once. This guy came to class, and he was passing around this little piece of paper like this, and it really rung home. And it was this story about this middle school, right? And there's this middle school, and in the girls' bathroom, the girls, day after day would go in during the lunch break, and they would apply lipstick. And in order to get the extra lipstick off, they would kiss the mirror to get the extra lipstick off. And this was a perpetual problem. The principal came over the loudspeaker and said, please, young ladies, do not remove your excess lipstick by kissing the mirrors in the bathroom. Blah, blah, blah. So weeks and weeks go on, and this problem is still persisting. And, once again, this isn't word for word, but I really get a kick out of the ending. So eventually, somehow, this one group of girls gets caught as the ones who are, getting rid of their excess lipstick by kissing the mirror in the bathroom. So the principal gathers this group of girls together, and they grab the custodial engineer. It's not a janitor anymore, the custodial engineer. And they take the girls and the custodial engineer to the bathroom. And the whole way to the bathroom, the principal is like, it's really unfair to Mr. So-and-so who has to clean up after this. It's vandalizing school property. Come with me right now. We're going to go to this bathroom, and we're going to have a talk. The janitor's going to have a talk with you. So he gathers them all in the bathroom, and he goes, now, Mr. Janitor, I want you to show them how hard it is to get that lipstick off the mirror. So the janitor goes, okay, and he reaches in and he grabs his squeegee, and he goes over to the toilet, dunks it in the toilet, and wipes the mirror off. And the last line of that little thing on this piece of paper said, there are teachers and then there are educators. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I got a real kick out of that one. Another thing that can really truly hurt us in our education, in the education of life, and that's expectations. And we're all guilty of it. I'm sure you all came here with some expectation on what was going to go on here this week. And you probably saw, my dad came up and scared you a little bit, intimidated you a little bit, and then I got up with Matt, and you were like, who the hell is this tattooed freak? That is truly one of the shortcomings of our society, is the fact that we always enter situations with expectations, and they are such killers. Whenever we approach anything in our lives with expectations, we really taint the situation for ourselves. Because when we have expectations, when those expectations aren't met, we're disappointed. When the act of having expectations, we really cut ourselves off in any situation to all sorts of small little teachings that are going on around us at all times. There is not one person that you come across in your daily life, there's not one person that doesn't have something to teach you. For as much as you learn from us this week, we all learn volumes from you. Every single class is different. It forces us to alter our teaching style to fit a specific group, to fit a specific person. I see it time and time again. You'll be out there, somebody will be out there working on a bow drill, and one of us will be sitting with that person intensely trying to get them the help they need, and it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't work. And then somebody else comes up and tries to help. And right away, that person has a connection with the person who's having the difficulty, and they get the job done. They'll get the bow drill fire. There's something to be learned in every situation in life. There are little teachings happening everywhere all the time. And if we have expectations, we really taint ourselves and we ruin the ability to gain those small teachings. A prime example is last year when I came down here, a friend of mine named Chris arranged this wild boar hunt for me and a fellow named Skeet, who's an old instructor here. So we went, and I was actually, the morning of the hunt, I woke up late, and Skeet and Chris was already out at these guys' property. They own this about 1,000-acre hunting lease down outside of Immokalee, I think it is, and it's in amongst all these cow pastures and tomato farms. So I was late getting up, and then I was trying to find the place, and I couldn't find it, and I was starting to get more and more pissed off. I'm easily frustrated. That's one of the hallmarks of ADHD. When things don't go my way, I get easily frustrated. So I'm trying to find this place, and after about 45 minutes of being lost, I finally get to this spot. And I pull around the bend, and there off in the distance is this hunting cabin. And the first thing I see is this big pile of burnt garbage. And I'm like, oh man, these are the last type of people that I want to hunt with. Because I have very specific ethics when it comes to hunting, when it comes to the natural world. And I immediately started to go have this monologue in my head, oh man, what the hell can these guys show me? Look at this, they burn garbage. Obviously, they have very little ethics when it comes to the environment, when it comes on the proper way of hunting, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. But I caught myself, and I was glad I did, because, I get out of the truck and I meet these couple of guys who, although they, were sort of older Floridian types, I hate to use the word redneck, I'm a redneck, a New Jersey redneck, but I swallowed my pride, because my intention when I saw the type of guys that these guys were, my intention was to park my truck, talk for a minute, the least amount I had to, and I was going to go off and hunt by myself, because I thought, what the hell can these guys show me? What the hell can they show me? But I swallowed my pride, and I went out with this one guy, he was guiding me. And it turns out, he knows a lot about hunting in Florida. I didn't know very much at all about hunting wild boars. I know some plants and trees around here, but I didn't really know how, wild hogs interact with other species of wildlife and, what inhabits this, what inhabits that, certain animal sign, animal behaviors of Florida. And I learned a whole hell of a lot from this guy who I thought wouldn't be able to teach me anything. Really, another cool side note to that story is we were hunting, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the week, but, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He said, well, truthfully, first thing happened is cool. He took me, and we were kind of stalking around these little islands of brush in these cow fields, these, huge cow pastures. And I actually got to stalking, within a couple yards of a bunch of turkeys with my bow, which anybody here who hunts turkeys knows that the wild turkey is one of the most aware, hardest to stalk creatures there are out there. So that made the hunt for me right there. And I will tell you this, I've been hunting my whole life. And the best hunting experiences I have had have absolutely nothing to do with killing an animal. The best hunting experiences I've ever had absolutely nothing to do with killing an animal. And I hate to use the word kill. I like to use the word harvest. Like my hunt this morning, which I'll tell you about, was really cool. But anyway, so, I got to stalk these turkeys with my bow, and it wasn't turkey season. So, I just went through the motions, and I got within, 8 or 10 yards, a couple turkeys, and then scared the hell out of them. It was great. I always like to do that to animals sometimes, because it makes you smarter, the fact that you were able to stalk them, and it makes them smarter because then they're a little bit more wary of humans and makes it harder for the next guy. So anyway, he says, it's a little early in the day, and it was hot out. It was like 80 degrees. And he said that the hogs aren't going to be moving until closer to sunset. So he said, what we should do is we should go sit in this little spot over here. And we had this, huge view of this cow pasture and all these, they call them heads. So it's basically little islands of palm and oak and things. So we sat down there and we're talking about tracking and hunting. And I'm learning so much from this guy. And I'm sitting there scanning this field in wide-angle vision. I catch some movement over here on my right side. And out of this one island steps this beautiful female mountain lion. And she walked for like 600 yards across this field real slow. And it brought me to tears. Because like I said earlier in the week, I've never seen a mountain lion in the wild. And, I've been hunted by them out in Washington State. I almost got attacked one year when I was out at my ex-wife's place. We spend a lot of time in California every year where there's just about as many mountain lions as there are deer out there. Never seen one. And here I come to Florida where there's only supposedly 70 of them. And that's when he said, oh, we see those things all the time. And, I didn't want him to see I was crying or anything, but it was a great experience. But, had I kept those expectations that I had when I left the house that morning, and had I gone off by myself, I'm sure I would have had a great hunt, because I can go anywhere and be mesmerized by nature. One thing I love is, and I reference this with seeing that red-tailed hawk or that bird or whatever when I'm out in public that nobody else sees. Anytime I'm anywhere near the natural world, because I like to think that I have some heightened awareness, I can find the beauty and marvel at anything. And I love to notice the things that most people miss. And had I gone out by myself, I'm sure I would have had a great day. But because I swallowed my pride and went out with this guy, I had the great experience with the turkeys, and then I got to see this mountain lion, which was an absolutely wonderful experience, and it was, I was thinking, I was like, man, that's got to be a good omen of some kind, coming to Florida. And if we found out 2 weeks later that, my wife was pregnant and Althea was on the way. Another funny side note about that hunt, right about 10 minutes after we left the cabin, we're walking around and we're coming upon this water hole, this cattle water hole. And he's like, hey, you go first to see if there's a hog there. And I had my bow. And I just round the crest of this water hole, and there's this huge alligator in this puddle. And the thing just takes off and jumps into the puddle and disappears. And he goes, it's a good thing for you. I'm like, why? He's like, because if I saw it first, I would have shot it, and your ass would have been going in there to get it because I got a bad back. And I'm like, thanks, buddy. Oh, it was so cool this morning. I decided to go for a quick hunt. We have some friends that own a property over here on the other side of the river. And I was just out there walking around looking for some wild hogs. I found some great tracks. I found a half-eaten baby pig that the coyotes had gotten a hold of last night. And I was sitting in the bank of this little creek just waiting, just sort of hanging out. And, this otter comes swimming down the river. It's this little creek, no wider than this table. And I'm a few feet off. And I'm just sitting there being absolutely quiet. And if anybody's ever seen an otter at the zoo, they're real playful. And I just made this clicking sound. He stopped and looks at me. And I waved at him and took off. But anyway, expectations are killers. You shouldn't have them in life. And don't ever go out into the woods expecting anything. The minute we go out in the woods and say, I'm going to go stalk deer, or I'm going to go stalk this, or I'm going to go see that, you'll never see it. And that way, if we don't have expectations, we're never disappointed because there's always something to be learned.